Hello, everyone, and welcome to Episode 3 of the Wooden Things and Stuff podcast. I am your host, Mike Davies of Mike's Wooden Things and Stuff, and today we're going to sit down with my friend Brad Ruff of Ruff Seas Woodworking right here in Campbell River, BC. He is a multi-talented, fly by the seat of his pants in some ways kind of woodworker. He's Ruff Seas Woodworks on Instagram, and he also happens to be a critical care nurse at the local hospital. We talk about all kinds of things. We talk about how he got into woodworking. We discuss some of our favorite tools that we work with. We get a little bit into social media stuff and business things. We talk about how he finds ridiculous amounts of wood and tools for very little money sometimes, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I hope you enjoy it. First, I would like to remind you that if you're listening to this on a podcast app, you can also find it on video over at youtube.com/woodenthingsandstuff, along with a couple hundred other pieces of woodworking content that I've produced over the last few years. And vice versa. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're sick of looking at this guy's face, head over to your favorite podcast app and you can check it out on audio. If you can't find it on your favorite podcast app, send me an email at woodenthingsandstuff@gmail.com. And I'll see what I can do to get it up there for you. Right now I'm on Spotify and iHeartRadio and Amazon and a couple others, but if you've got one that you want me to use, I'll look into getting it up there for you. And secondly, I want to once again thank my Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/woodenthingsandstuff for chipping in financially to keep me going. And that's where you can head over and find out the different tiers and ways that you can chip in and keep this thing going as well. And that's all I want to do in terms of intro stuff. I just want to hop right into my hour-ish conversation with Brad Ruff. Let's just get right into it. Mr. Brad Ruff, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
No, you're more than welcome. We have known each other not an extensive amount of time, but we live in the same community. Did we meet on Instagram too? Me and the last guest met over Instagram.
I think we met on Instagram, and then before the whole thing we're living through right now, we actually, a bunch of local woodworkers got together.
Yeah. I was surprised
and then when it happened regularly, I believe, and well, what we're living in kind of put a small kibosh on that for right now.
Yeah, I think we just I personally was confused and excited that all of a sudden there were other woodworkers in this community. Like when I joined Instagram, I didn't know that other people actually did this here.
Yeah, I'm the only one.
I felt so lonely in my little garage shop, and then I joined Instagram and, a couple of hashtags here and there. And all of a sudden I've got 4 or 5, 6 friends right here in this community that all do the same kind of thing.
Totally. And like yourself, I was excited because I found someone in you and a couple others that are supremely talented that I can learn from. So that's it was golden for me.
Oh, settle down now. You don't have there's no prize money for buttering up the host or anything here.
Oh, I agree. I think you paid me to come on, did you not?
Not yet. You keep it up.
Okay.
We'll see that check's getting smaller and smaller.
Fair.
So introduce yourselves to these people. Who are you and what do you do? And we'll go way back in the way back machine and talk about how you got started. But where are you now in terms of what you do as a creative type, and what you make and that kind of thing?
Okay. Well, we'll go back later. Currently, I'm a critical care nurse. So I work at the local hospital. And in my off time, I like to spend time in my garage shop making all sorts of things. Anywhere from I'm making little tiny bowls and wall art to bar tops and tables and whatever. I have friends want stuff, and then their friends see it and go, "Hey, I like that. Can I get one?" So it's just gone from there.
Yeah, and you're kind of like me as well in terms of like you don't seem to really have like a thing. Like how some people like they make cutting boards, or some people make art wall hanging things, some people make cabinets. You're kind of like me, like every time I pop onto Instagram, like you'll go through phases of stuff, but like
Yeah.
you don't necessarily, you're not a furniture maker or a box maker or a something. You kind of just go the whole. How do you determine what it is that you're going to get into next, or what you're going to make next? Is it by like custom order, or you just sort of go with the flow, or what?
Sometimes it's totally go with the flow. I see something and go, "Hey, I wonder if I could make that. I'm going to try," and kind of refine it, and then maybe sell the refined piece, or custom order. Somebody says, "Hey, can you make?" And I'm like, "Well, I can. It might take me some time
Right.
because I've never done it before. So let's go on this little journey together." And everybody seems to be pretty happy at the final result, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of work on what I'm working on
Right, because I
at the
mean,
moment.
you've gone for everything from like full size beds and dining tables right through to just playing with your router and hollowing out 8-quarter chunks of walnut to make little bowls. Like,
Totally.
yeah,
And I'm happy doing all of it. It's just the variance is kind of nice. I think that's one thing I like
yeah.
is I
I
don't want to do the same
realize
thing over and over. I get bored.
I've realized that in the short periods of time where I've tried to do sort of like production work type stuff, like I need to make a whole bunch of these things to take to a market or whatever. I've quickly realized that I'm never going to be a production anything maker, because
Yeah.
I get one or two in and I'm like, okay, can I just do something else now? Like I want to just cut a set of dovetails for no reason or something, like
I feel the exact same way. It's the mind numbing stuff. No thanks. The same thing over and over and over and over and over again.
yeah.
But some people do it well. I am
Well,
not one of them.
and I think the people who do it well are the people who are not, they like they don't need jobs, like that's when you do stuff like we do it, I don't know if you can make a living just making whatever you want whenever you feel like it, and just doing custom orders for different types of things or whatever. It feels like the people who are making a living doing this are churning,
Absolutely. The grind,
yeah.
that daily grind thing. And yeah, I could never make a living at what I'm doing. It would work out very well. It also doesn't help that I have 4 teenagers. So, try
Well,
and make the food bill in small wooden pieces. It ain't gonna happen.
why do you feed them so much? Like, just stop feeding them so much.
Well, apparently you get in a bit of trouble if you do that. So I
Hmm.
decided I couldn't do that anymore.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. So when are they leaving? Like, how many more years do you have them for before you can?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Nah,
but
it's all
then
good.
you got college bills, and then they're always coming back for like, yeah, no, that's. I think we're both. I mean, I don't have four. I've only got the one, but it's I understand the struggle a little bit. So well,
Yep,
let's
yep.
hop back in the Wayback Machine, and how did you get into making things out of wood? Have you always did you grow up as a creative type, or working with your hands, or like where did this come from for you?
Well, it's kind of a strange story because I'm a pretty black and white person, so I drifted towards the sciences pretty quickly in school, whether that was high school, college, university. It didn't matter. It was a lot of science stuff. I did spend a bunch of time in the outdoors in that time, which was fantastic. But really, my dad worked with his hands. So I kind of fell into working with glass as a teenager, glazing, um, and started working with my hands just because it was after school or weekend job. And if I worked hard, my dad paid me well. If I didn't work, well, there was no pay. So yeah, worked hard, did that. He had a few tools. I started mucking around just with scrap 2x4s. At one point, made a desk just out of scrap 2x4s and a sheet of plywood. And it was just because I just needed a desk. That's all it was. And I didn't really enjoy it, but it was okay. Yeah. And then jump forward a few years, got married, had a couple kids, and my wife and I, through various circumstances, decided to adopt a couple kids. And we decided to do that internationally. And it's an endeavor that eats a lot of money. And at the same time, I was also a local emergency room nurse, and I needed an outlet. So between needing an outlet from the stress of work and needing a bit of extra cash, I just started making things out of wood. Some of them I look back and go, whew, how
Mhm.
did that get sold? I'm not quite sure. People were gracious. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, why did I let that
But
why did I let that go out of my shop? Oh, right, because I didn't know any better at the time.
exactly, it's the learning piece, right?
Yeah.
And learning from others, learning from the interwebs, um, and it's just morphed into what it is now. It's kind of crazy to look back.
So when and how did it go from like I'm just gonna make some stuff on the side and see if I can make a couple extra bucks to like I need a brand, I need social media. Like when did Rough Seas Woodworking come into like in terms of like becoming an entity?
Yeah, I suspect that took a couple years. And I was just selling really local and by word of mouth, just small signs. Some of it just like beechwood that I would paint words on and people would buy it. And yeah, like crazy,
Hey,
right?
hey, that I
And
mean I don't know if I call it woodworking, but I call it sale, you know?
it's not woodworking. It's scavenging for wood and then starting to use that beech wood and milling it down and making things out of it. But it was probably a couple years in before I actually started, you know, social media stuff and branding. It was my wife that pushed me to that. She's like, you got to get this stuff out there. I'm like, nope, nope. I gave a lot of pushback for a long time. And then one time we were on vacation and had a bit of time, and she's like, hey, download Instagram or put that Instagram app on your phone. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
She's like, you just got to do it. Just go for it. And it's just kind of morphed a little from there.
Yeah. And so where would you say at this point in terms of like the business side of woodworking, what would you say that are the percentages in terms of like the revenue from custom commissions versus what you put because you're also in a local retailer as well. You put stuff in what Bow and Antler, I think, right? And
Yeah, I
then
do. Yeah.
and then from just like, word of mouth, friends and family type stuff versus people hitting you up that you've never met that just message you randomly. Like do you have a sense of like where the majority of your output goes?
A vast majority is fairly local, but Instagram's been crazy where I have shipped things. Definitely all over North America, every single corner of North America. Like I don't understand. I've said to somebody before, "Hey, you know that I'm sure there's somebody locally that can do this for you." They're like, "Nope, I really like your piece, the way you present it. I want it." And I'm like, "Okay, shipping's on you." They're like, "Yep."
Yeah.
And it's like, and it just goes from there. And I've got more sales because of, somebody down in Tennessee saying, hey, this is a really cool piece, this guy up in Canada makes it. It's nutty. It kind of blows my mind a bit.
Yeah. Do you do okay selling out of the retail shop? Like are they constantly hitting you up to up your production or
All the time.
yeah.
And I'm constantly turning down other businesses either locally or on Vancouver Island that want some stuff. I can't keep up, and I don't want that extra stress of trying to keep up all the time because I want to do some of my own stuff too
Well,
in
and
the
like it
in
comes
my
back to what
garage
we were
shop.
Well, yeah, it comes back to what we were talking about before about like it at the very core of it, we want this to be fun,
Absolutely.
and if
And
you're,
thus far, it's still fun.
yeah, if you're not having fun doing it, then like it's just like any other job, and that's not what any of us want this to be. Like I would love for this to make a few more dollars, but not at the expense of my enjoyment of the process and everything else, right?
I agree 100%. Really, I totally agree. People, I was talking to someone last week and they said, "Hey, do you still enjoy doing what you're doing in your garage shop?"
Yeah, I
And
get
I
that a
was
lot
like,
too.
100%. Well, you spend a bit of time out there. I'm like, yeah, I do, but I choose the time wisely because I have a family. You got to have family time. I've got my regular job. So maybe I'm out here very early in the mornings or late at night when everybody else in the winter is on some sort of screen, just trying to pass the time because it's dark outside. I'm in the shop.
And it's raining.
Exactly.
I mean, we're
Or
lucky.
this year, snowing.
Yeah, a little bit. But I mean, let's be honest, like in terms of where we live in Canada, like we basically we have the best winter in terms of like that type of thing. I was doing my Saturday night live show last week or the week before, and then somebody could clearly hear a motorcycle go by my house. And they said something along the lines of like, "Are you in Canada? Like, who's riding a motorcycle around?" And I like, "Well, there's maybe 2 weeks a year, most years, where you can't ride a motorcycle around here. Like, we have a pretty good situation."
Totally. We have an amazing situation. We're pretty lucky. Even in the winter, you need a raincoat and some sort of shoes that are waterproof, and you're good to go,
Yeah,
like all the time.
yeah. Maybe you want to wear a sweater underneath the raincoat on a few days, but yeah, that's
Few
I
and far between, though.
and I like it's what the end of January, and I took my kid to school today, and I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Like I had a
Yeah.
jacket on, but I was like, I didn't need it probably. Like I'm just going from the house to the truck and then back from the truck to the house. That's
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then in the summer, the great thing is it normally doesn't get too warm either.
yeah,
So
yeah.
just stay middle of the road weather-wise. It's great.
I mean, with the last year we had the big like heat inversion, or what did they call it? A heat dome or something that came through
Yeah.
that was exhausting, but it was 3 4 5 days of 40-ish, and then back down to 26, 27, and then down to 18 at night. Like we're in a pretty good spot.
It's fairly perfect.
And
Fairly
I
perfect.
I also I grew up in Saskatchewan, so the contrast between those two environments is like, yes, I'll just, this is fine, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember when I was growing up, and we had to listen. Well, I guess it was pre-internet days, or so I wasn't checking Facebook, but we would listen to the radio station in the morning to find out not if the school was open or closed, but whether or not we were allowed to go outside or die. Like it was like we
Yeah.
were listening to the weather report that would tell us whether or not we could go outside to avoid dying. Like it was like you literally, if you leave the house today to go get your mail from the street, you might not make it back to your door. Like
Yeah. Yeah, no thanks. I prefer the weather we have. Thanks.
yeah. And so another thing I wanted to touch on with you is you are probably, of all the people I know, you're probably the best person I've ever met at finding wood and tools. I don't know how you do this, but like every time I turn around, you're like, "Oh, I got another tree worth of maple. That do you want some of it?" And then I come over to grab it, and you're like, "Oh, and I got this box of tools from a guy too." And you pull out like a number 4 Lee Nielsen bronze, and like I'm like, where how do you do
Yeah.
this? How do you come across all of this wood and tools and stuff?
Well, some of that's right place, right time, like just fluke. but part of it is I actually grew up here in Cam River, moved away, and then came back. And my parents have been here since the early 70s. So my parents know a lot of people.
Right.
Because they had a business here in Cam River for a long, long time. And so my dad talks, well, he talks more than I do. So he has a lot of connections still, even though he's retired. So I hear a lot of things through him. He's like, oh, hey, I was talking to a so and so. He's got a trunk of a tree that he's going to buck into firewood, but he'll give you 2 days to pick it up if you want it.
And you say,
So
yes, I
it's really
do.
connections. Of course, I say, I'll come and look at it. And sometimes I'm like, nope, not worth it. Sorry. And other times I'm like, yep, we're going to mill that guy up.
And so you're not like every morning checking Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and all these places and like coming across these things. It's just like they kind of come to you.
Yeah, I don't check Craigslist even once a week for wood or tools.
That this is not helpful for our listeners. I was hoping you were going to have some
Sorry.
strategies for people to find things.
No, the strategies, honestly, the strategies that I personally have are being nice to people you meet and quickly telling them who you are after learning about who they are. And those connections go a super long way.
It's true.
I'll
It's
get
true.
random phone calls from people. Hey, I heard you are always looking for wood from so and so. You don't know who I am, but this is what I got.
Yeah, and it's true. It does go a long way because I have people that I've met through various channels that I'll get emails from once in a while, and they say like, I'm taking down this tree in my backyard. Is it of any interest to you?" I say no because I don't have the time or resources or anything to like put into it. And you probably are at the point where you should be saying no more than you are. Like, should we go get wife and bring wife
My
on the
wife
show?
says I should say no. No, don't bring her on. She almost has a panic attack walking into the garage shop now. There's so much wood and stuff out here. And by stuff, I mean like I'm looking around at tools and yeah, it's a bit nutty.
Yeah, you're at the point where you have an extra planer you don't need, and like you have like what extra dust collector that you probably need to get rid of. And
Oh, those are both gone.
okay,
They exited before Christmas.
all right, okay, because the
Yeah,
last time
so
like
I'm
the last
slowly
time I
working on it.
came in, it was like you had just gotten another batch of things, and I was like, okay, so what are
Yeah,
you doing with that and that and that, because you can't work in here, yo.
it's very true. No, I half the stuff you saw the last time you were here is gone.
Okay, all
So I
right,
still have a large file.
I'm going to trust you, but even half, I think. Yeah. That's all right. You know, like,
No, I'm not saying half the stuff that was in the garage shop. I'm talking about half the pile that you saw and went, you can't work in here.
oh, half the new things that had just come in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I do.
Just clarify it there for you.
I can clear this spot right here for that number 4 bronze if you need to.
It has quickly become my favorite. That's for sure.
Let's do. I'm going to introduce a segment series on this show. The last one I did with Tyler Peterson was random recommendation. So let's do that. Let's do random recommendation with Brad Ruff. It can be a tool that you can't live without, or a YouTube channel that you get a lot out of, or a podcast. Tyler picked a podcast. It could be just any random thing that you want to recommend to people.
Recommendation.
Random recommended. Do you want me to go first and then you can think about it for a minute?
Yeah, go. Yeah.
Okay. I am going to pick this week. My random recommendation is a stationary sanding station. I I have found out since I got the rigid oscillating belt spindle sander that I don't think I could live without a spot in my shop where this thing lives and I can just go to it and sand there, as opposed to
Nice.
like, grabbing, well, I mean, the random orbit sander gets used wherever, but like in terms of having a place where you have a sander that lives and you can just run over, it's already plugged in, you don't have to unplug something to plug it in, it's there, it's ready to go, you flip the switch, you do a quick little bzz, bzz against the side of something and you flip it back off. Like a permanent place where you have a sander set up and ready to use at all times is my random recommendation.
Oh, nice. That sounds great. My goal is to have a small sharpening station at some point that is just set up. That is not my random recommendation because I don't have one. You know what?
You can recommend that to everybody else, even though you don't have one. I mean,
that's true. I could. My random recommendation, though, now that I've had a couple minutes, would be there's a specific Bessie clamp that I have only seen once, and I bought 2 of them in special order because they didn't have any in stock, and I want more of them. So I'm just gonna get it because I don't even know what the name or number is on it.
I'm a little concerned that you've found these things once and you bought as many as you could and now you can't find them again, and we're going to recommend to people to go find these things and they're not going to be able to.
I haven't searched more for them, to be honest. I'm sure I can probably order them locally, but they're these guys.
Okay.
The Bessie GK30.
Okay. It looks like a mini parallel jaw clamp almost.
Well, sort of. The handle actually turns.
All right.
And it moves this guy. And the handle isn't here.
Oh, that's
here. So you never are wrapping your knuckles on something. Thus, you can get it way tighter.
Yes.
These ones, I don't know, are a 12 or a 14 inch. What is this? Yeah, these are a 12-inch one.
Okay.
But yeah.
And it's good that the handle isn't on the low part on the head, because now you can also get those 2 sides of the clamp in 2 places and without having the handle get
exactly. Yep.
Okay. That's a good recommendation. In terms of the audio listeners, you might want to head over to YouTube and I'll
check it out.
I'll see if I can find. I'll look around and see if I can find like a link for them, and you can see what we're talking about. But that is a handy looking clamp.
Yeah, I got a couple of them. I need more.
Yeah. Do you like that size? Is that about right for you? Do you like having like a bunch of 12-ish ones, or do you?
Yeah, this one is amazing. It would be nice to have a couple that are a little bit longer, but I actually mostly use it kind of 6 to 8 inches or under.
Mm. Yeah.
So even if they made an 8-inch one, it would be super helpful.
In terms of my clamp, I mean, the stereotypical like cliche of woodworkers is you can never have enough clamps, right? But I mean, I have a bunch of 4-foot, like most of my clamps are just like pipe clamps, and I have a bunch of 4-footers that I probably pull them out once a year, and I only ever need a couple. And like I would like to have more sort of 18 to 24 inch clamping options, because there's times where just like you got an extra 1.5 feet of bar if you're using this thing that's just like getting in the way and making it hard to move around and stuff. I think for me, the most of the stuff that I make, the 2-foot clamp is about as long as I ever need.
It's usually the max that I would use too for a lot of things, except for like a tabletop or something, but that's it.
Yeah. And how many tables you like, unless you're in a production table shop, you need one.
Yeah.
You need to make one table for you, and you need to make one table for somebody who saw your table.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So yeah, I have a bunch of 4-foot bars as well, and then I keep some extra 2-foot bars and then just swap them out when I need. But definitely the two footers are the kind of golden size for me anyway.
Unfortunately, I have found if you are ever gluing something up that is 24 inches, the 2-foot pipe clamp does not do that because of
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating when your brain says it works and then it doesn't, and you wonder what you've messed up. Like,
well,
did I cut the wood wrong? Did I not measure? Like, what happened? And then you're like, oh,
yeah,
the clamping portion itself takes up part of that 2 foot.
well, because a 2-foot pipe clamp is a 2-foot pipe with clamping mechanisms on it, so it's actually only it's only about an 18-inch clamp in terms of the actual capacity of it.
Yeah.
But that's
Every time my brain goes, what did you do wrong? And it's like, oh, you just didn't think. Thanks.
And again, so now we're using the 3-foot or the 4-foot clamps, and you've got a foot of pipe sticking out at the end of it, and
and I always bump that.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I walk into it all the time. That piece sticking out drives me crazy.
Slam your hip on it, and it comes flying off the bench and rattles on the floor, and it's
with a panel attached to it that's now a bit messed up.
Or a cabinet carcass. Like
no.
It's great. Man. Good times in woodworking. What is your favorite? Okay, you can't use the Lee Nielsen bronze. What's your favorite tool right now? What are you getting a lot of good work done with?
My favorite tool right now would be the more recent acquisition of some Japanese chisels.
Ooh, you liking the Japanese? What is it that you like about Japanese chisels versus the Western style chisel?
Well, compared to the Western style that I had before, the edges on these are just shaped nicer. So if you're doing like just a tiny mortise or something like that, you're not wrecking the edge of the mortise itself, which I found.
So they've got a bigger taper on the either side.
Yeah, it's just nice, and the edge definitely stays sharper longer than the set that I had before.
Okay, so would you say that it's more of a just like these are a higher quality chisel that's making you like them, or is it the actual like format of the chisel itself?
I think it's a bit of both, actually.
Yeah.
I think the format is nice, but they just feel nicer in the hand as well.
Yeah, just the fact that they are more expensive, better chisels.
Yeah, for sure, because I do have IBC Tools makes some great chisels. I do have one of those, and it is amazing. Like, just the taper on the blade is nice. The back came true right from across Canada. Yeah. From where they make them. The edge, it keeps an edge real nice, but yeah, it is definitely a more expensive chisel, and I would have loved a set of them, but came across this full set of Japanese ones that's going to fit the bill for probably the rest of my life. So
you accidentally stumbled across a full set of Japanese chisels that made their way into your shop.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I think that may or may not have been the same day that you got a Lee Nielsen number 4 bronze and a number 8.
It would have been the exact same day.
Yeah.
Along with like a myriad of other very nice hand tools.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I can clear some shelf space.
I'd be willing to let you borrow it. But not borrow long term, because I know how you'll take that borrowing.
No, you know what you should do is you should lend me. I'm almost at the point where I need to resurface my workbench, and that number 8 would be a pretty slick, relatively quick thing to make a job of the top of this workbench. I might actually hit you up for that. Man.
It's yours.
Everybody heard that, right? He just said that his Lee Nielsen number 8 is mine. You guys heard that, right?
Take it and run. Take it and run.
So what else do you want to talk about? I don't really have like I said the last episode, these sort of meet the maker interview episodes are just sort of just casual chats. You got anything else on your mind you want to talk about? Or
No, nothing crazy, man.
I got no direction that I want to take this thing. I would like to take a moment and just like thank you on behalf of the rest of society for what you do in your actual job. And apologize. I would also like to apologize on behalf of the decent human beings on the planet for what you've had to put up with over the last couple of years from other people.
Yeah, fair. Thanks. I along that front, my current job, I'm a little bit sheltered from some of the madness. Not totally. I still deal with patient care on a day-to-day basis. That's what I do. And yeah, sometimes I'm fully garbed up and sometimes I'm not. Some of my colleagues are even locally are garbed up quite a bit in some of the massive masking, gowning, all the stuff that you see on TV. And they're doing an amazing job, and still, yeah, they're treating people with respect. Doesn't matter the patient's choices, and they're doing a good job at it. And I really appreciate the hard work they're doing, and that they're taking definitely the more brunt of it than I am.
Right. I mean, I don't want this show to get political. It has nothing to do with left or right or wrong or pro or anti or anything like that. I find it frustrating that as a society, we went from banging pots and pans out on the streets to celebrate you folks and what you were doing to like relatively soon after groups of people like coagulating around entrances to hospitals and like picketing medical facilities and stuff. And I just I don't know where. I think this conversation should probably end before I go off on my situation here. But I just on behalf of everyone that is like me, thank you very much for what you do.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and also Robertson screwdrivers are really great. I don't have a nice segue into something else here, but when you talk about your Japanese chisels, are you also a Japanese pull saw, or are you a Western push saw fella?
I actually have both, and I in the last week have used both for different things. Yeah, I haven't acquired a greater taste for one over the other. Sometimes it's just whatever's closest because my shop's a mess. And sometimes it's, no, I think this saw will work best. I'm going to try it. And away we go. Because I actually don't have much experience at all with hand saws, period. So I'm just trial and error, really.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. It's either which one, like what, sometimes it's what is this saw designed to do? Like, what am I doing right now? Do I have a saw that is actually designed to do that? Because that should probably be the one that I use. But sometimes it's just like, I need to cut this piece of wood right here. Which one is closest, or which one is the easiest to grab, or whatever. Yeah, say I don't have a preference on whether it cuts on the push or the pull. Same kind of thing. I don't actually. Yeah, I don't have a comfort level preference.
Yeah. Does it cut the wood, and does it going to work for the job that I need it to cut wood for?
I do like. I mean, hypothetically, I do like the fact that a lot of, well, comparatively, I think this is true. Someone will correct me if I'm not, I'm sure. But I think that more Japanese tools are, at least at the budget level that I'm looking at, are like dispose it by a new one, as opposed to Western saws, which are like get it sharpened. I know that my Ryoba, or not a Ryoba, I got a Dozuki that's like it goes dull, and you buy a new $40 Dozuki, as opposed to like my dovetail saw, which I could either sharpen myself or take to somebody and have sharpened. But
it definitely appears that way, but I don't know basically nothing about that.
And that's to say, I've never actually had to sharpen a saw, so I don't use my saws enough to the point where I've ever had to sharpen one. So
I'm in the same boat.
I might not be the best frame of reference for people on that, but if you know, like, let me know, because I do think, from my experience, the Japanese saws, I think, cut faster, because I believe the kerf is thinner in general, so it's removing less material in general. These are all sort of general statements. Obviously, you can get
someone will call you out on it.
Oh, for sure. But the saws that the Western saws I've used definitely have a thicker kerf than the Japanese saws that I've used. But again, I'm not enough of a hand tool guy to actually know for a fact. I'm interested in people's perspective on these things, because I see a lot of people that are primarily Japanese hand tools, because the grit, like the pistol grip of the Western saws versus the sort of gent style, I guess, like flat of the Japanese. And some people say that the posture makes a difference for them and things. So I'm always interested to hear people's perspective on that. But
totally. Now, as for like power saw blades, that's something that I definitely would know a minute bit more about, and that's just because of the table saw I have, and I guess you can't really call it a skill saw, circ saw in that. And when I need that resharpened, and what kind of blade I like, and what for, and how many tooth, and what kerf, and it's just, I've got a personal preference with that stuff now. So maybe over time, both of us will figure out what we like more. Not that Western dovetail saw is better than a Japanese dovetail saw. This just comes to personal preference.
Yeah. Are you a buy the more expensive blade and have it sharpened more often, or buy the cheaper blade that's still good and replace it, in terms of like table saw blades and stuff? Do you have a forest?
I do not have a forest, and I'm not going to talk to why I don't have a forest, because it's been talked about lots online. But I do buy a more expensive blade and then have it sharpened. And that was learning over time.
See, I've never been able to convince myself to pay more than about $60 for a table saw blade. But again, it comes down to the fact that I don't think I use any of my individual tools enough to see the difference. That maybe I'm wrong, but like, I don't use my table saw. I use it a lot, but I'm not a production shop. Like, even if I was buying an expensive table saw blade and sending it out to sharpen, it might be 2 years before I need to sharpen a table saw blade. So like, I don't know, for me, like, spending $60 every 2.5 years on a new blade, it feels about right to me. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I just don't know what I'm missing, but
I don't know. For me, it's I think actually part of it for me is the culture that we have become accustomed to, of having something and having it disposable. Like, I don't like replacing my dishwasher every 5 years. angers me that a dishwasher can't last more than 5 years. So I've started to translate that into other things that I do as well. And like an example of that for me in my shop would be a table saw blade. I can buy it once and get it sharpened a ton of times over probably like you. I don't use my table saw tons and tons and tons because I'm also not a production shop, but I can probably have one saw blade for 20 plus years. And sharpening is pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do put out a bit more at the beginning, but yeah, it's just choice. It's just choice. It really is. But I
Well, and
think that's probably part of my perspective
yeah,
on it.
I mean, and that's part of why I make the things the way that I make them, because I want this to be the last coffee table you ever buy. I want this to be the last bookshelf you like, and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so, and part of that is, like you said, in response to this disposable culture that we've adopted over the years. But I don't know, maybe it's just I've never, when I've needed a table saw, I haven't had $160 or to buy a
Yeah.
new table saw. Maybe it's just a simple, straightforward, like I need a new table saw blade or I need this one. I don't think I have any. Well, maybe my Freud like industrial rip blade might be. I think there's enough carbide on that that I could probably get it sharpened. I don't know.
Well, you totally can get those sharpened.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, I'll be honest. The difference between Freud industrial full curve blade and a like quote unquote more expensive blade is like maybe $30, maybe with shipping,
Really?
if you can believe that. Yeah. I'll point you in the right, I'll point you in a direction that you can ask questions to people who know things.
Sure. Well, let's do you not want to say what kind of blade you bought? Because like
No, totally not. I'm really happy with FS Tool. It's a Canadian company, which also I really like to support if I'm able to
Mhm.
financially. And I get it through Ultimate Tools in the Lower Mainland.
Okay.
They ship it right to my door. I have two of them, so I can have one being sharpened and one not. I didn't buy them at the same time, bought one at a time, and been super happy with them.
Well, and they're like somewhere in the 90 $100 range.
Yep.
Oh, okay, something to think about.
Yeah, for future.
Right on.
But yeah, Ultimate Tools, they sell a ton of different blades, and you can just their Vancouver Island sales guy actually has an Instagram account, and he's happy to chat about what your needs are, and away you go.
Is
These are
that
your
who
options.
is that who you went through for your Laguna F2 table saw that you recently put in your shop?
It is F3 actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad.
But yeah, so
I'm
I
sorry. I'm just gonna have to
it's now
correct you.
been
It's actually the F3. Mall.
yes. Well, because I got 220 power, right? So I was very fortunate in that
Yeah.
having being able to do that. But the I guess has that been 2 years I've had that guy now? Yeah, I
Mm.
think it's 2 years. I got it.
I guess
Yeah, it's 2 years.
time is a weird fickle beast these days because I'm still picturing that. Like I can still remember. It doesn't feel that long ago that you posted the shot of the crate in like so. Yeah, I
I
guess
know,
it
right?
might have been. I don't know that it's been 2 years. It was. I guess
No, I
yeah.
got it in spring, and it definitely wasn't last spring.
Right. Okay. So yeah, going on 2 years then.
Close to
Hmm.
crazy.
And well, should we review the Laguna F3 table saw? How do you like it?
Oh, the Laguna F3. Well, my choices pricing things out were Laguna F3 and then one of the saw stops. Um, choice
Which saw
game like
stop?
all
Would it
three.
be the like the really lit like the contractor saw stop?
No, it wasn't. But saw stop prices have gone up since then,
Okay.
as most things have. But the price difference was well over $1,000, because I tried to equal out, 3 horsepower at 220 volts, etc. And yeah, my choice ended up being a financial one with Laguna. I've been super happy with it. I know in the past, Laguna has apparently had customer service issues. I was told that had changed. I hoped it had changed. And then when I had customer service questions when I first got it, they immediately responded and were fantastic and said, "Hey, here you go."
I've heard exactly the same thing. I've heard
really
a
nice.
lot of people historically have bashed on Laguna customer service. And so, I mean, I've only been in the woodworking world for maybe 4 years, 5 years, something like that. And so when I first got into it, the thing about Laguna that I always heard is that the holy grail of bandsaws are Laguna bandsaws. And unfortunately, if your Laguna bandsaw breaks down for some reason, you're screwed because they're never going to talk to you. And then sort of over the years, I've just sort of been seeing it get better and better. They've got more of their tools are things that people want. I've got their lathe. And they apparently have significantly improved their customer service and their customer relations side of things. So
yeah, from my perspective, I don't have any qualms about their customer service for sure.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
I honestly had a response within 2 hours to my email, and I think that's pretty good. I don't expect that. No. So that works for me.
And I guess,
I've been happy with the tabletop.
I think part of what maybe it's an expectation thing as well. Like, I don't know if people's expectations over the years with the whole like instant gratification side of things that we've gotten to, like, how that's funny because this came up the other day about something else altogether. And I said something along the lines of like, yeah, well, it's probably Amazon's fault when you dial right back into it, because when I was growing up, you could never get a thing delivered within a few days that you wanted it.
Yeah.
Like, that just wasn't a thing. And now the expectation has been that I should be able to order this thing, have it at my house by the end of the week, or I should be able to DM this company on Instagram and get them to respond to my, everything is supposed to be faster and instant and whatever. And I don't necessarily have that expectation myself. So I don't know.
No, I think it's unreal expectation, but definitely society in general really, they overall expect it. We see it in all sorts of industries, and it's just not fair. Like it's not realistic.
Well, and I think people may be starting to realize that a little more with this last couple of years of disruptions, and especially like with supply chain issues and stuff. And people are they're like, what do you mean I can't get this thing for a couple of months or whatever? It's like, I think that might be, if there's any positive spin that you can put on infrastructure disruptions and supply chain issues, that it might be that it sort of tempers people's expectations going forward a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a reality check for even other portions of the world that don't have Amazon.
Yeah. No, but then at the same time, like, sometimes I'll order something, like, I try not to go through Amazon very often, but sometimes it's just the easiest, quickest, cheapest way to get something that I need. And I've ordered something on Amazon at 3:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday and had it on my doorstep Wednesday morning somehow. Like, I don't even know how they do that.
I know it's a bit crazy, especially because we live on a big island that they've got to get it from somewhere, get it to the island, and then drive it. Like, it's insane.
In fact, this pop filter that I'm using in front of this microphone, I ordered at mid-afternoon, and it was on my doorstep when I got up to take wife to work the next day. I was like, I don't understand how you did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Drone, maybe drone.
I think do they have like a secret Amazon warehouse in Courtney or something? Like I don't understand how this got to my house this quickly.
Well, who knows? It is Amazon. Never know what's behind the scenes. Not sure.
This random on the side of a mountain, like the backside of Mount Washington. There's actually an Amazon warehouse we don't know about.
Yeah. They dug a big tunnel and made a huge cavern in there somewhere.
and, and
Man.
made even more money because they found a huge nickel deposit.
Yeah, exactly.
And now they
Crazy.
have a mining arm of the Amazon industry. But I think
Um,
now that we're just completely off the rails, should we look at shutting this down? You got something else you need to do today, or
I always have things to do. I'm sure you do too.
what fence slats are you cutting into what animal?
Ah, no, no animals today.
No,
No animal silhouettes today.
you make it
Working on
so you're making a
sauna
router
floor.
bowl.
No, not
No,
today. Working on sauna floor.
sauna floor, something for yourself for once.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
a guy. So do you find that to be like having to say no to people or businesses or whatever for requests so that you can do stuff that you need? Do you find that difficult? I've always find myself like bumping my own stuff down the list when I get a request or for a commission or something like that, because that thing is going to make me money. And for some reason, that has to be the priority for some nonsense reason. And I like now it's another month until we get that thing that we need. Like,
Yeah, I have the same issue. For my house, it's not another month. It's if you ask my wife, it's another year. She's been asking for some trim work for over 2 years, and my wife's really she's gonna lose her mind here soon. I got to do some trim in the house, but
just just go
yeah,
to Home
stuff
Depot.
definitely gets.
Just go to Home Depot and get the crappy pre-painted MDF stuff and just put it up and be like, there you go.
Yeah, but then I might have to do it twice.
Uh, you could buy yourself
So,
another couple of years though.
uh, it's definitely possible. But no, I've been trying to carve out a day a week where I either do little to no woodworking for other people. Um, I started that probably maybe 6 months ago, trying to do that. Doesn't always work, but it definitely helps.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, not to plug my own like weird things, all the things that I do, but you have the added. I guess it's not really an advantage, but you don't do content. You don't like
Yeah,
so you're not having to add that time investment into the recording of everything and the editing and blah 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 blah, and like that side of things becomes another product as well that you're
totally.
that you're producing. And so yeah, I have this sort of internal struggle. I talked about it a little bit on, I think, one of my end of year rant shows, whereas either the resolutions one or the year in review or something like that, where I talked about how this coming year, so 2022, I am going to put out fewer videos and try to make them better rather than be worried about this sort of self-imposed churny timeline where I always have to be, feeding the algorithm and, all that
Yeah,
stuff and, giving the audience what they want. Well, why don't I think about what I want once in a while?
totally. I took a 3 or 4 week Instagram, like just didn't put anything on there around Christmas time this year, just because I'd had enough of it for a bit. And of course, that's nothing compared to like you making videos and podcasts and all that stuff. Uh, but it was a nice little breather, not like what you call feeding the algorithm. It was a nice break. And have I seen a change because of it? I don't know. I'm starting to not care as much.
Yeah, the guy. I think that's the issue. Is like I think it comes down to the fact that is that all these things are self-imposed. Like you're convinced that you need to be doing this, but does anybody like, I don't know, would anybody notice if I wouldn't have said I'm going to put fewer videos out this year and I just did that instead? I don't know that I would get a bunch of messages saying like, "Hey, you're not putting stuff out as often as you used to," or I would probably be the
Yeah.
only one who would
Are you,
notice.
are you still alive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see you finally making videos again. Like,
Yeah, I think you probably wouldn't see much of that at all.
but like I mean, a self-imposed anything is a thing. You
Yep.
you don't just get to decide like I'm just not going to self-impose things on myself anymore. Like yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Some of us, some people I know are better at that sort of thing than myself.
in terms of like restraint.
In, yep. Definitely in terms of restraint. I definitely kind of wax and wane with that.
Yeah, I
But
think everybody goes through phases of stuff when it comes to that. But I think for me, what I want to get away from is like the exhaustion, work yourself to exhaustion and then crash type situation, as a like find some kind of like sort of steady middle ground where it's like you don't just like you don't have to take a break because you're exhausted. You get to take a break because you've earned it, but not that you need it. It's like when you book time off from work so that you can sleep because you haven't slept well for a while. Like
yeah,
that's not a vacation. That's health recovery, you know?
sure. And I think long term, taking a little bit of a step back, it's probably more enjoyable rather than work at something, whatever that is, crashing, trying to recover from the crash, and then trying to get back on the horse again. That piece can be hard. Where if it's just take a step back a little bit and take it a little more consistent approach at a slower pace, maybe. I don't know.
Well,
It's maybe a life lesson.
I think there may be a classic children's story um, about a tortoise and a hare that
Yeah,
is probably
totally.
one of the first life lessons that you learn as a child, or that I learned as a child,
Yeah,
is about the slow and steady wins the race kind of situation, right? I mean, there's a bunch of cliches and
yeah,
phrases around this thing.
totally. Well, I think maybe I heard the story. It doesn't mean I learned anything from it.
Do we ever really learn anything ever?
uh, Sometimes I wonder for sure. I
There are
relearn the same thing over and over. That's 100% positive.
well, I just see. I don't know if you can phrase it that way. I think you can say you make the same mistake over and over. You obviously didn't learn. Like, I think this is a phraseology like situation here. You didn't learn
Well,
the same thing.
what about the term relearning?
Well, but I think that when people use the term relearning, they're talking about learning something differently. So, like, I would have to relearn multiplication to do it the way they teach my kid how to do it. But
Yeah,
I still learned multiplication. I would just have to relearn it a new way. Whereas, like,
fair.
learning to not do something stupid in the shop, you don't relearn how to not do the stupid thing in the shop. You didn't learn it the first time.
You're not working with me here, man.
we're we're going to be talking. So stay tuned for section 2 of this episode, where we talk about the use of the English language in proper ways and what certain words actually mean. We're going to dig back
Exactly.
into the. No, I'm not going to go into the history of how words became what they are. I think we should just wrap this up. People are definitely sick of listening to us by now. Do you want to?
If they're not, well, they will be in a moment.
Do you want to plug anything? Where can people find out about the stuff that you make? Where's the best place for people to check out your work and get to know you a little better?
Best place is Ruff Seas Woodworks on Instagram for sure.
Yeah,
that's where I post most of my stuff. There is a website, roughseaswoodworks.ca, but I can't remember the last time I put new stuff up there.
So that's more of a sort of a photo album of historic events, is it?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. All right. Well, it was fantastic to talk to you. I'm sure we'll talk again soon by text at the very least. Maybe I'll pop by and see how your shop is completely turned around since you got rid of half of the stuff that you brought in just before Christmas.
Oh yeah, don't get too excited about the change.
And I got to pop by and grab my new number 8 here at some point anyway. So
yeah, there you go.
All right,
come and borrow it anytime.
No,
nice chatting with you.
No, everybody heard what you said. It's going to be on the internet. When I post this thing, everybody's going to be like, so how are you liking your new number 8 that he gave you?
Yeah, fine. I know where you live and work.
It's true. And you could, yeah. All right.
I could almost throw a stone from my house to yours if I had a real good arm.
I think with a compound bow, I might be able to hit your house. Like if I could get it up over the trees.
I think so.
Maybe this should be a new YouTube video that I do this year. Can I hit Brad Ruff's house with a bow that I made myself? Well, I'll find a nice piece of like English yew. I'll find a nice piece of English yew that they used to make the bows out of for the English archers back in the Middle Ages, because that's good bow wood, that stuff. And
oh yeah.
And I'll see if I can make a longbow that could get over the trees and hit your house.
There you go. Maybe use the local Pacific yew.
But I want it to be historically accurate.
Okay, fine. Okay.
All right. Let's shut this down. I'll talk to you again soon. Everybody, thank you for popping in and spending some time with us this afternoon. Check out Ruff Seas Woodworks on Instagram. And we will see you no, I don't see you at all. That's wrong. You can see me again we're doing this bi-weekly these days. We're gonna roll it out every other week on Mondays. So stay tuned to see who else I've got lined up to talk to. I've got a few interesting interview subjects coming up that I think people are going to appreciate. And again, if you are interested in being on the show, if you think that we would have a fun conversation that people may or may not get anything out of whatsoever, send me an email at woodenthingsandstuff.com and let me know a little bit about yourself and what you want to talk about. And who knows, maybe we'll sit down and have a chat one of these days too. So for now, everybody stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.